episode 6 now, I believe. So let's just kind of recap a little bit about last episode and just kind of where we're heading into this episode, or I guess the direction we think we're heading into with this episode. But last time we talked about moving from just attending church to participating in church, and the participating in church comes to caring for one another in church, right? Not just seeing people, sitting with people, but actually caring for them. And so we talked about participating more deeply into this church life, caring for one another, which opened up the door for this aspect of being real with one another, being vulnerable and open, with them. And so, if that's what church is meant to be, then the question was, why do so many Christians still kind of stay on the sidelines, right? Why are we still more just not participate? Why are we more just attending and showing up more so than participating? And so last episode we talked a little bit about some of the things with just busyness, the busyness of life, and a lot of those things. And you had a great story kind of talking about that. But today I kind of
What story was that?
The story of you working all the time.
Oh,
and, yeah. And so today we want to stay talking about that. What are some of those things that keep us on the sidelines and really urge forward of, hey, how do we start participating? What are those things that we can do actively to make us more engaged, to want to be involved? And so, hesitation, fear, comfort, some of those things kind of come to mind. From your perspective, what are some of those things that keep people on the sidelines, and what are the ways to kind of overcome that?
Well, I think it goes back to something that we covered at one of the podcasts where we talked about how we created Christianity to be a Sunday thing. And when we leave that Sunday event that we go and sometimes just attend, we don't even participate in it, we have fulfilled what we feel like we have to do. And what prepares us to really care and engage in people's lives, those who God puts in front of us, those who cross our pathways, not by accident, because to the Christian, as we talked about, there's no such thing as an accident. We aren't prepared to care the way we're supposed to, because when we leave church on Sunday, then we're going to live our life the other 6 days. And then when I come back to church, I'm not prepared to be able to understand and appreciate where the person that may be sitting 6 pews behind me, that's crying, that may have this long look, I'm not prepared to meet the need of that person by just going over and saying, "Are you okay?" Or, "Do you need somebody to talk to?" Because I guarantee you during the week, we all see people that are upset, have long faces, maybe even crying. And do we even attempt to go to that person and say, "Are you okay?" Or even, Gabe, not even approach him, but say, "Man, Lord, would you help that person?"
Yeah, and there's a big difference between just showing up and versus belonging, right? Because I think about it from that example. If I'm just showing up, it's just another thing. It's just another person.
Right.
It's if I belong, then there's this implication that I care for those that I belong with.
And when
they hurt, I hurt.
You engage it.
Yeah.
When you belong, you engage. And we engage not just on Sunday, but all throughout the week. I heard a story. It's so funny. I just heard this story on the radio the other day. And it's so perfect for what we're talking about right now. Because we as human beings, especially me, man, guy, how you doing, David? Man, everything's good. Everything's rocking right along, and the world may be crashing behind me, but I'm not gonna let you all know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure you think I got everything under control. That's the attitude that so many of us have, especially us men. Let's be honest, guys. Let's be honest. So I was listening to this story the other day, and it was somewhat of a testimony of this guy. He was a younger man, maybe in his 20s or so, and he says, "I got my first man job." my first adult job. He was talking about this. I got my first adult job, and man, I went out there and I was able to rent me an apartment, and I rented my apartment, and then I needed furniture, so I went down to the furniture place and I got my furniture and all this stuff that I got. I didn't have any money. I had a man job, an adult job now. I'm making money, so I could make payments on the stuff that I wanted. And man, it wasn't long. I extended myself a little too much. And I mean, it just came crashing on top of me. And I was like, what am I going to do? And in his apartment complex, he had another friend of his who was a guy. And his friend came over to eat with him that evening. And his friend's like, man, how's everything going? Thank God he didn't take the man approach and say, everything's going good. He's like, bro, I backed myself in a corner. He's like, what happened, man? He's like, bro, I had put myself in a bind. I said, I have got my job, I gotta pay my rent, I gotta pay the note on my furniture, I gotta pay this, I gotta pay that, and I can't do it. I'm gonna have to move out and get rid of stuff, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. He said, and in my response, I prayed the stupidest prayer I thought I've ever prayed when I asked God, this is my fault, but help me get out of this. Not only a stupid prayer, it's an honest prayer.
Yeah.
And his friend's looking at him, and he said, wow. He appreciated the vulnerability of his friend, being honest with him. And he took out his checkbook, and he wrote a check for $1,000 and gave it to him. And the man was just blown away that he cared enough to do that. And the guy said, I paid him back. It took me a little while, but I paid him back his $1,000. But the thing that got me was whenever his friend said, I've never done this before. I've never given anybody money in a situation. But it was like God telling me I needed to help him. You know why he was able to help him? Because the guy met his friend's need, because he understood his need, because he let himself be exposed to the vulnerability where he was at. And I bet you, Gabe, that guy had been in the same place one time in his life.
Yeah.
And he was able to respond, huh?
And there's this, man, I used to have this worked out really, really well. Your use of bro in that story was really funny, by the way. It's a new age thing. I say that. I watched movies from the 90s, and a lot of the slang they were using in the 90s is the slang we use today, and I'm like, oh, that's full circle. But there's the difference between sympathy, I'm so sorry,
yeah,
my condolences, versus empathy of, I feel your pain.
I feel your pain.
It's moving, and it's the sympathy is just kind of just this thing. Empathy it's an action. It moves you to do something, and that's when we belong in something. When people are vulnerable and we can share, and we belong together. It moves me into action, and I think it's interesting. One of the things I never thought about this until you had said it. This idea of being a man, right? Of that's. Hey, everything's great. Nope, my life, there, no problems, blah, blah, blah. It's almost what it is. It's the same as like the highlight reel from social media, where I portray my best self. It really, it's the same thing of,
Look at who I am.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to see my hurt or, my downsides. Right. I don't want people to see that, no, I'm bankrolling this lifestyle on payments, right? It's that kind of that same thing, and it's so interesting that connection of how we all get so trapped in it. And then we go to places where we want to belong, but then we're so scared to be vulnerable because we don't want someone to know I'm struggling.
Yeah.
And so I think that's usually one of the reasons, I guess, why we stay passive in church, why we don't engage, because it's, man, what if I'm really found out?
Yeah.
What if someone really knows? And the honest answer to that is the answer in your story is, if someone really knows, they're going to help.
Yes.
They're going to help. And I think all too often, though, we've been exposed and we see the negative sides of when people open up, right? I think we've been hurt and we've been burned a couple times of, you see someone open up, be vulnerable, and then they're judged by it.
They're judged by it, and it's sad. And it's sad, and it does cause some people never to come back. Mm-hmm. But, you hope that they can get over it, and I say that in a positive way, that they can get over it. Now, there are those people I want to say, get over it.
There's some very trivial things.
Yeah, they're very trivial things. But there are those people that have truly been hurt because they were reaching out to somebody And because of their pious attitude, instead of meeting them right where they were at, instead of just coming down and getting down on the ground with them, they tried to stand up and say, "This is what you need to do." Well, that doesn't do anything. Get down on the ground with them. You know, not to take anything away, but you know, when your mom passed away, when Jeanette died, it was an amazing wake. I mean, there were so many people came to that wake.
Yeah, it was nonstop.
And I'm not taking anything away from anything. Those people, they were very sympathetic to what we were going through. And I was at points, sometimes the emotion was overwhelming to me. I wasn't standing there trying to act like I had everything was going to be okay. It was a tough spot. Yeah. Tough I was trying to make sure my children were okay. I was okay. But the people that you really, when they came to that line, that were crying, I knew they felt my pain. Mm-hmm. And they were there to say, "David, I love you. I don't have the words to say to you, but I'm down here with you. And if there's anything I could do for you right now, I would do it. But all I need you to know is I'm down in this rut with you right now. And I care. And I care." That's what people need to understand and know.
Yeah, because it's so many people have either been hurt and they don't want to risk opening up again, mm-hmm. or some people have seen people that have been hurt by not opening up again, and so they don't want to open up themselves, and so it gets into this really tough cycle. And so it's some people, they might want to participate at a core, but we all, I think as humans, have this innate nature in us to belong. Like we have this in us to belong to something. That's why we have so many groups. If you're on Facebook, you have so many forums of, oh, these people are fishers, these people are hunters, motorcycle riders, art, golfers. I don't know, that's a lot of guy hobbies minus the art, I guess. But there's all these hobbies that people participate in and want to belong to. And so, you know, we want to belong, but all too often, especially when it comes to church things, when it comes to the faith base, it's been a hard time seeing a healthy model with that.
Yeah. Because we've got to get away from what's been created. It's a Sunday event that we just going to go meet the requirement that we feel like we have, and it is a requirement. But how are you fulfilling that requirement? Are you fulfilling that requirement based on a response to His amazing love? Or are you filling that requirement because you feel like you're obligated to be there? And the beautiful part about it is, Gabe, when you're there because it's a response to His love, you begin to see the needs of every person sitting around you. You're connected to their spirit. Yeah. You're connected to them. So, you know, and when you're connected to that person, you want something positive to take place for them. You want them to come out of that pit that they're in, you know?
Well, it's back to that early model of the church that we see in Acts, of where they pulled together when one was needing, they provided for the one that was needing. And then the pendulum swung, and then they were the ones that were in need, and the person that they helped, then were now able to help them. Like, that was the model that was shown, you know, and I think that's the model we all crave. And there are certain different groups and segments that do a really good job at it, right? Like, I don't want to take away from different things, but as a whole, as a majority, you know, I'll be the first to say, I've done a really bad job with that. You know, like, I've done a poor job with that. I've seen and I've talked to so many people that they've been at places that have done a really bad job with that, and they crave to have it, but there is also, they're still going to have to step out again themselves, right? Like, there is still that, I love this, Jesus meets us right where we are. Absolutely. He's literally in the pit with us. But He meets us where we are, and then He invites us to a new place. He doesn't keep us where we are. He doesn't force us, He doesn't push us, but He invites us to come to a new place. And then, like, that's just an ongoing, that's sanctification. It's an ongoing journey of Him inviting us to a new place, a new place, a new place, a new place. And so, you know, there are just a few of those barriers that we've kind of talked of, where we got to get past those barriers to where now we can be there with Jesus and have him calling us and inviting us to a new space. And I think I have this list right here. I like some of those barriers, the fear of vulnerability that we talked about, right? The fear of rejection that we've talked about. The church hurt and the different hurts that we have and these feelings that we have around this. Busyness, which we talked a ton about last time. The consumer mindset of I'm coming to church just to take, not wanting, the responsibility, right? Waiting for someone else to take the lead. I think that's kind of the one where we're at too, of like, okay, hey, I want to do this, but someone else has to take the lead. Waiting, the comfort and the convenience, right? Like, we want our comforts, we want our conveniences. If those things get taken away, I can't go, I can't do that. And then not knowing where to begin. I love that. Like, it's where do you start?
Yesterday, I had a good friend of mine from Michigan that I met a few years ago, and he actually interviewed me to be on one of his shows to share my testimony. And he called me out. He called me out of the blue, and he's like, David, I got a friend of mine that I really like for you to meet. And they live in Texas, and they happened to be driving through Louisiana yesterday, and we arranged to have lunch. Lunch turned out to be a 2.5-hour lunch. And here I sat with he and his wife, and it was a beautiful thing because he's 81 years old. He never would tell me how old his wife was because he said she would get mad at him. But she looked a whole lot younger than him. But anyway, we sat there. He was 81 years old, and he shared with me his life, which in turn, he shared his vulnerabilities with me. Right. Didn't even know me, but he knew I was a Christian because we were sitting there together and our spirits were connecting. And after he finished sharing, it was so amazing because our lives paralleled so much. Our journeys paralleled. Our witness, our testimony paralleled. I shared my vulnerabilities. And we, in our sharing our vulnerabilities, we could share where we've struggled, but how God had taken us from that place. Mm-hmm. And as you just said, Jesus brought us somewhere different. And it was almost like he and I were being put in the same place. And now, I'm trying to figure out the reason we met yesterday, but the point I'm making is, it was a beautiful encounter. It strengthened my faith in this amazing God because he came down and he brought this man into my life and his wife, and we shared the good things that came from our vulnerabilities.
It's the community. It does require cost, right? Like that. It costs you time. It costs you energy. It costs you honesty. There was sacrifice, right? There's give and take. If y'all have been in any business class, you're always going to hear that, like, this is business 101.
What cost me? I had to pay for their lunch too.
Well, I was about to say, the business 101, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So even them, they didn't pay it. It still wasn't a free lunch. Like, there's still sacrifice that was made there. And sometimes it's discomfort too. Like, you can sacrifice, and sometimes you might be in discomfortable situations, discomfortable conversations. But it's often...
That'd be uncomfortable, not discomfortable.
Discomfortable. That's a good point. But, the community, it does require cost, but it's so worth it, right? It's so much, there's so much worth to it. If you listen to any love song, right? Love takes effort, but love is it's worth it. And so...
When you see a person find their way from the muck and mire that they're in because you were down there with them and you helped by just a kind word or a kind gesture, and that person came out of it, there ain't nothing worth. No success of business can compare to what it's like to bring somebody to truly experience his love. Nothing.
And I listened to the Robertson's podcast, the Unashamed podcast, amongst others, but that was one. And I was listening. I'm several weeks behind right now, and John Luke, who's it's Willie's oldest son, he's like probably late 20s, early 30s maybe, and they were talking about our generation. I guess he might be a millennial, but the younger generation specifically, and they were kind of talking about, so we're celebrating our 250-year anniversary this year in America, and they were talking about the coming to America and the different religious groups and religious freedoms and all those things. and he was talking about how these generations want more unity, and it was just refreshing to hear them talk, and it really is like it's a cry, like more unity coming together. And all I hear with that is, hey, we crave community together, unity under Christ.
Yeah.
Not these walls that we put up, not these divisions, not other areas where we can hurt someone else that believes the same things that I do, minus a few little points here, right?
Yeah.
We want this community around it, and it's so cool to see. And I listened to another podcast, and it was kind of funny talking about, it's like, hey, how do we do that? Like I don't have a men's group where I'm at. I don't have a small group where I'm at to connect with people. And it's like, how do you, and I love what the guy said. He's like, send a text now. Think of the men in your, send a text. Think of the girls, start a group text. Text them right now. Call them right now. Just do it. Be a part. Invite them. And it's funny, I did that not too long ago. I guess it was. This year's kind of flown by. Where I was bringing the blue. I'm like, hey, completely random. If the answer is no, that's fine. I'm in sales. I can take no for an answer. It doesn't really bother me. How would you like to do a Bible study at this time? And overwhelmingly, the answer was just, yeah, no, that's awesome. I've been praying about this. Like, so it's, I think getting started, it's just that. It's just getting started. It's just doing it. It's taking that leap of faith. But it's also knowing these things, and I think these things are so important to talk about, that it is going to require something. It's going to take time. It's going to take energy. It's going to take patience. It takes a lot of patience. It takes discomfort. It's going to be uncomfortable at times. See, I got those words right that time. But it's so much, it's so worth it, that committing to something, it takes away convenience. But man, what the reward is on the other side, So I want to flip this a little bit here. I do want to talk about something cross-generational for a second here, because I think there's so much that could happen here. What would it look like if you had older generations? You talk to the guy who's 81. I mean, that's a lot of life experience at 81 years old. You have the 81-year-old with all this life experience, with all the willingness, the honesty, the vulnerability, to then sit there and mentor a group of teenagers, young 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, and him be able to sit there and honestly talk about his struggles and those things, and then for them to be able to honestly share what's going on in their life. I mean, what would that have done for you when you were that age, if you would have had that? And what do you see as, what are the barriers to that? But then also, if you overcome those barriers, what's the benefit to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we kind of hit on that at one of the other podcasts. Had I had that when I was a teenager coming up, it would have been incredible. When I was a kid coming up, it was more of a training process. It was more of, this is why we do this is how we do this, and this is what you need to do next.
It was formation.
It was just a formation thing. And there's nothing wrong with formation. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with formation, but there was no intimacy in that formation. Yeah. There was nothing but formation. And my generation is so entrenched in that formation. This is the way we've always done it. It's like the story. Grandma, why did she cut the end of the roast? Why did you cut the end of the roast? Because Grandma cut the end of the roast. Why did Grandma cut the end of the roast, Grandma? Because my pot was too small. Why do we do things? We do things out of ignorance, really.
That joke might not land in my generation. You had me lost for a very long time.
But it's just, it's so funny that because of the format that has been placed before us, that this is how we've got to do it. That's what causes barriers between generations. And I don't want that anymore. I want people to be excited about, I don't care if it's an 80-year-old person or an 8-year-old person. I want us to get excited however they discovered that magnificent love that God has for them. It doesn't make any difference. And when we say, well, it didn't happen the way I've been taught it should have happened. What difference does it make? They've experienced it. They've discovered it. And now it begins to dwell in them, and you can see it. It comes forth. It's like the woman at the well. She went back and changed the whole town.
Yeah, it's moving away from that kind of legalistic mindset of these are the set, like this is it, this is the boundary of it, and it's all right. Hey, here's God. I'm putting him in this box, and it's moving into this loving relationship.
And you kind of hit on this a little bit because you were wanting to know the answer. Why do we? Because y'all are tired of this denominational thing. The denominational thing is, I'm going to tell you what it's because of. Ignorance. Focus on your faith, your denomination that you're wanting, and make it the best it can be. Quit worrying about what some other denomination. They're nothing more. They're like you. They're a pathway to the same God. Mm-hmm. Things may be done a little bit differently. Quit worrying about it. If you want to become that denomination, then become that denomination. But quit trying to make a denomination what you feel it needs to be when you can't even get your own house in order. Get your house in order first. You know what I'm saying? And lead people to Christ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so one of the things too, though, is we want this community to happen around us, right? Like this, I think that's one of the things. It's a funny example. You sit in a lot of meetings at work. Meetings, it's where you're on like a Zoom call most of the time, and you gather around, and you've been out for a little while there. Anyway, so meetings, and you meet for a lot of different things. You meet because we want to do this, and it's like you have all these meetings, you have all these takeaways, and then it's almost like you're just kind of preparing until the next meeting happens, and it's like, okay, I'm expecting this to happen around me, but not necessarily like I'm taking the charge on this meeting, if that makes any sense.
It makes sense.
And that's a fair example. That's just mine. And I think a lot of the times we do that with community, with church. Like, we want to see all these things happen around. We want to see our faith prosper. We want to see our faith community prosper. We want to see our community just in general prosper and come to know God. And, we want to connect more with people. We want to see it around us. We don't want to necessarily be the vessel for it to happen through.
I need to clarify something about because people are probably saying, well, how could David know what he's talking about when he's talking about different denominations, out of ignorance, saying things that they shouldn't say? Well, let me fill y'all in on a little something. I've been a Catholic all my life. I'm 60 years old, and I was born into the Catholic Church. What's most important to me is the fact that at 30 years old, I discovered the unbelievable magnitude of God's love for me, and it changed my life forever. But I've also been involved at a Baptist church because my wife was Baptist for 42 years now. So I'm kind of familiar with a lot of things that a lot of people ain't. And I've heard things said in the Catholic Church, and I've heard things said in the Baptist Church. And let me tell you something, because I've been involved in both of them, and I understand both of them pretty good. Wouldn't you think, Gabe? They were both, from both sides, set out of ignorance. Let's just focus on what brings us closer to God. And when we do that, we'll begin to see those barriers that we have created out of ignorance begin to join us in love. We'll begin to care for one another. And through that caring, it will change this world. It will change this world.
Yeah, we make our churches kind of exclusive.
Yeah.
Sunday is still the most segregated day of the week, by default. It really is. We've made it exclusive to specific people, to specific groups, and we're running out of time here, but that's kind of one of these other things we were talking about before the podcast came on. It's hey, you that look this certain way, you belong here, and then you don't look a certain way, so hey, we're gonna put up a little bit more walls, and it's really sad when you think about it, and it literally goes against the book of James 100%, right? Don't show partiality. Don't show favoritism, right?
Jesus didn't even show it.
And so it's one of those things of where it's, come together. We're all different churches, but we're all under the same church. Yeah. We're all focused on the same thing.
Amen.
So I think we're a little over on time here.
Quit talking about time. Just wrap it up.
It's a good way to stop here anyway. So look forward. We will see y'all again next time.